All right, everybody, welcome back. This is the Horn Takes podcast. Your very rough around the edges Texas sports talk destination. I'm your host, Sean Redfern. It's Longhorn Friday. And I love Fridays all the time. But I especially love a good Longhorn Friday. It's been 2 weeks since we got to see the Texas Longhorns take the field. Just about 2 weeks. Excited to see them get back out on the field. Excited to see how this team responds to some adversity. Disappointing loss. I'm excited to see just how the coaching staff and the players respond to what we just had 2 Saturdays ago up at the Cotton Bowl. It's bye-bye to Cougar High one last time. Maybe. We thought it was bye-bye to Cougar High a long time ago. We'll have our Trace Otra games picks today because it's Prediction Friday. Have Sean's 4 big questions of the game. 4 keys in a prediction. You would think that the keys to the game would mirror the 4 big questions, but they don't. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. You can listen to the podcast at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Trace Otra games week 8. Pretty good slate this week. Some tough games to pick, I think. But we tried it anyway. We're putting our 11-10 record on the line. Number 7, Penn State at number 3, Ohio State. Surprised this is an 11 a.m. kick on Fox. I guess the way the Big Ten contract is, Fox can scoop them up first, and they scooped them up and put them at 11. Ohio State's a 4.5-point favorite in this game. Last time I looked. You look at this game, and finally it looks like these two teams have somebody to play. I know Ohio State had a game with Notre Dame. I know that game came down to the wire. I know Notre Dame just beat USC. I just don't think I think Notre Dame is a good football team, but I don't think they're like an elite level football team. And you look at Penn State's schedule, and they just really haven't played anybody. They've been killing everybody. But they haven't really played a tough team. So this will certainly be a test for Penn State, and it's another opportunity for the Ohio State Buckeyes to, prove they're still an elite program. They haven't looked as good this season early on as they've looked in the past. Breaking in a new QB, that's always hard. I think there's a couple questions in this game for me. The first one's, is Penn State ready for the big time? This has been a long rebuild type deal for Penn State. They've had some disappointments. They've had some teams that people thought were going to be really good. And it hasn't always panned out for them. But right now it seems like they've got a pretty good roster. They got a good coaching staff. It seems like they're kind of right there on the cusp. To get to where they want to be, this is the type of game they got to go win. It'll be tough on the road. In the shoe at 11 a.m. Remember back in the day when Texas was going up to Ohio State to play in the shoe at night? It was going to be like the first night game in a long time, I think, for some reason. Maybe not. Maybe I'm messing that up. But a lot of Ohio State fans at that time said there's no way nobody comes into the shoe at night and beats Ohio State. Of course, we all remember what happened. A really good game. And I think from an Ohio State perspective, can you go beat a team with a pulse? We talked about it. Notre Dame. Notre Dame is okay. They're a good team. So maybe can you beat somebody with a pulse is not the right nomenclature, not the correct vernacular there. But the point being, can you beat a really good team? And I think Penn State is probably better than Notre Dame. The rest of Ohio State's schedule to this point is just kind of like refried dog shit. It's not good at all. So I think this will be a big test for both of these teams. The defenses on both of these teams are just absolutely statistically amazing. I mean, they're like in the top 5 in almost every major category. Neither of the offenses is statistically amazing, which kind of surprised me. You look at the points they score, especially Penn State. I got to figure Penn State's getting some defensive scores or just pinning people back so deep with their defense that they're getting really good field position, because offensively the numbers just don't look great, but they're scoring lots of points. Penn State, I think, is the only team in the country defensively that's holding opponents to under 200 yards of total offense per game. That's pretty salty. I think Ohio State's probably better offensively. This game is at home for Ohio State. Those wide receivers at Ohio State, they're just bound to break out and make some noise, right? They're probably the best wide receiver group in the country. I think Ohio State is going to win this game, but I think Penn State is going to cover. I think the score is going to end up something like Ohio State 27, Penn State 23. So game 1 of our Trace Otra games for week 8. We got Ohio State 27, Penn State 23. Next game's number 17 Tennessee number 17 Tennessee at number 11 Alabama. 2:30 p.m. kick. These are all Central Times, by the way, folks. CBS. Alabama is an 8-point favorite in this game. And, man, I'm kind of surprised that Alabama is an 8-point favorite. They've struggled offensively. The defense has been good. The offense has been explosive, but they just can't seem to put it together and get a lot done offensively consistently. I mean, they scored 24 points against Arkansas last Saturday in the first half and didn't score another point. I didn't get to see that game. I didn't get to see the second half of that game. I saw a little bit of the first half. But that can never be good. Found a pretty funny clip last year, and it was after this game took place last year, so I saved it and I wanted to play it, man. This is some pretty good stuff by an Alabama fan about how they feel about Tennessee.
I just hate Tennessee, man. I hate Neyland Stadium. It looks like a garbage truck worker convention. And I hate all their quarterbacks. I hate Tennessee, man.
Describe what you feel about their colors, too. I thought that was interesting.
It reminds me, and it's not that orange that you can stand. See, I hate Tennessee more than I hate Auburn. I just dislike Auburn. I hate Tennessee. See, Tennessee's colors is that throw-up orange. It's not that orange that you can sit with. It's that puke inside of a pumpkin orange. And I don't like pumpkins. So I really don't like Tennessee, man. I can't stress that enough, man. And they losers, they sore losers because they're not Alabama.
So that guy really, really, really hates Tennessee. I'm surprised to hear an Alabama fan say he just dislikes Auburn, but he hates Tennessee. Anyway, I thought that clip was hilarious. I think it was an actual TikTok video that I saw this interview happening, and so I just pulled it down and took the sound out of it. I didn't realize Alabama fans hated Tennessee that much. But there it is, man. Bama's looking to bounce back from last year's 52-49 loss at Neyland Stadium. In that game, Tennessee ended a 15-year Bama win streak. So Tennessee fans hate Bama fans. I just didn't know it was reciprocated. And maybe that cat lives in Tennessee. Who knows? Maybe he has to put up with that shit all the time, listening to Tennessee fans every single year run their mouths. I don't know. 15 years straight, Alabama beat Tennessee. They took it out on them last year. Trying to start a streak of their own this year. Man, I still really like Alabama. I've been saying it all year. All you people that are down on Bama just because they lost to Texas and then the next week they went down to South Florida, played 2 backup quarterbacks for whatever reason, didn't look great in that game. They haven't really looked great in any game. I mean, they have not really just been Bama. I think it was Middle Tennessee State they played the first game of the season. They look like Bama in that game. But they just really haven't looked like that. But I still think they're a super talented roster, man, and they've still got Nick Saban. And the other thing you got to think about, folks, they got 2 brand new coordinators. And one of them, I'm just going to be honest, is terrible. That guy from Notre Dame, man, I don't know what the landscape looked like at the time Nick Saban made that hire. Not a fan of that hire if I'm an Alabama fan whatsoever at the time. And now that I'm seeing it unfold every Saturday, I'm really, really not happy with that hire if I'm a Bama fan. I don't think this kid will be at Bama next year. You know what? Maybe he is. Maybe Nick Saban, for continuity's sake, keeps him around. I think it depends on how the season unfolds. They're starting to come into a stretch in the season where they've got some tougher games. See how they do, how they come out on the other side of all that. I think that will determine whether this Reese kid, I call him a kid. He looks like a kid to me. I don't know how old he is. But I still like Bama. The only thing I don't like about Bama, besides the coordinator, the offensive coordinator, is the offensive line. It's just a big question mark. They have just struggled, man. That freshman left tackle just got abused last week against Arkansas. And then they brought in the backup, and he got abused last week against Arkansas. So they've got some problems. They're sacked a lot. The running game has not been Bama-esque. You look at Tennessee, and they've beaten up on some really bad teams, but they've, haven't beaten up on any of the good teams. They lost to a really bad team. I mean, Florida is not good. I know I've been up and down on Florida. The beginning of the season, I said, man, they're going to Utah. It's tough to play in Utah. They've got a good roster, I thought. Talent, And Utah wins, and everybody's down on Florida. I'm like, man, that game wasn't that bad, man. I mean, I know it looked bad. Parts of it looked really bad, but I didn't think the game was that bad for Florida. And then they whipped Tennessee's ass in Gainesville at the Swamp. And I was like, man, maybe here comes those Gators. But no. I think they lost to Kentucky. I think it was a bad loss, too. I don't think it was really even that close. They barely get out of South Carolina alive. I think Florida is just not a good team. Tennessee lost to them, and Tennessee got dominated in that game. I think both of these teams' best wins at this point were probably against A&M, who's struggling offensively. Their defense is really good, but their offense is not. Prediction time for this one, man. Give me Jalen Milroe making plays. Give me Nick Saban losing his mind on the sidelines over Josh Heupel and that squad at Tennessee any day of the week. Last year, Heupel caught lightning in a bottle with a really seasoned quarterback. Some NFL caliber wide receivers. He doesn't have that right now. They're not playing like that offensively. I think Bama wins this game, but I think Tennessee covers. I like 23-17 Bama in this one. Number 16, Duke. At number 4, Florida State. This one's at 6:30 p.m. Central Time on ABC. Florida's a 14.5-point favorite in this game. When I first saw that line, I was like, no way. What? That's some disrespect to Duke hard, man. But then it dawned on me that Riley Leonard's still out, still day-to-day. They call him day-to-day now with a high ankle sprain that he suffered against Notre Dame. Mentioned it back. That was one of our Trace Otra games a few weeks ago was the Notre Dame at Duke game, and just talked about after that game how terrible of a last minute was that for Duke fans. Not only did they lose the game, but on one of the very last plays of the game, their quarterback gets rolled up on. You saw how much pain he was in. Just really I knew he's going to be out. I knew that's what it was. I knew it was a high ankle sprain. And those are tough to come back from, man. I know they're calling him day to day. If he plays, he's going to be limited. Running is a big part of his game. He hurt Notre Dame in that game. He hurt Clemson earlier in the season with the run. For Florida State, it's kind of their last shot before the ACC championship game, we assume, to impress the playoff committee. Just like I liked Duke's defense back then against Notre Dame, I still really like Duke's defense. I think they'll keep them in this game for a while. I doubt Riley Leonard plays in this game. But if he does, one of his biggest attributes is going to be kind of useless. He's not going to be 100% on that ankle. There's no way. So I think the Duke defense does enough to keep it close for a while, but I think Florida State's offense is just going to be too much. I think they're going to roll in this game. I got Florida State 31-13. Now on to Texas at number 8 Texas at the Houston Cougars this Saturday. That one kicks at 3 p.m. on Fox. I got some big questions. For this game, just like I do for every game. Does Texas bounce back mentally, emotionally, and physically from that Red River shootout loss? The coaching staff saying all the right things. Steve Sarkisian saying all the right things. The team's focused. We've had good practices. The team's angry. But this is one of those moments where in the past, Steve Sarkisian teams at Texas haven't responded well. We saw in year one a really devastating loss to Oklahoma in the Red River shootout. Huge lead, gets picked away. They end up losing it in overtime. I think it was overtime. Maybe it wasn't overtime. Doesn't matter. They lost the game. I'm so distraught about that. I can't even remember what it was. But we see them lose that game, and then they lose like 5 or 6 straight after that. 5 of those with double-digit leads in the second half. We see Texas beat Oklahoma last year and then struggle with Oklahoma State. So can this Steve Sarkisian-led Texas team really do all those things you need to do to bounce back after a tough loss? It sucks losing games like that. Talked about it yesterday, man. You got to move on. Get your mind right. Get right physically. Get right mentally, emotionally. Get ready to go kick the shit out of the next 6 teams. Number 2 question, will Jordan Whittington make it 2 in a row? We talked all headed up to the Red River shootout about how we thought Jordan Whittington was about to have a breakout type game. He really did have a breakout type game in that game against Oklahoma. Over 100 yards receiving. It should have been a lot more. Man, Jordan Whittington was wide open coming across the field on a 3rd down play early in the game. And Quinn Ewers just never saw him. I mean, and when I say wide open, I'm talking wide open. Easy 6. These defenses have all their attention on Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, JT Sanders. Worried about Jonathan Brooks coming out of the backfield to catch passes. Worried about him running right up the middle for long touchdown runs. it opens up a lot of stuff for Jordan Whittington, and him and Ewers got together against Oklahoma and had a really big game. I think he will. I think Jordan Whittington's going to have another big game. Will the defensive line dominate the line of scrimmage like they did through the first 4 games of the season? Man, through the first 4 games of the season, this Texas defensive line just absolutely wreaked havoc. They looked really good. Probably the 2 best games they played against Alabama and Baylor. I mean, Texas's defensive line roughed up Alabama, and they roughed up Baylor. Lots of different guys played, and it really didn't seem to matter who was in there. They were winning battles up front. They were getting tackles for loss. They were putting lots of pressure on quarterbacks. They were sacking quarterbacks, piling up running backs in the backfield. But since then, they've only had 1.5 tackles for loss and 0 sacks from the defensive line. I don't know if it's injuries. I don't know if it's fatigue. Maybe they're just coming back down to earth. But the Texas defense was really dominant in those first 4 games especially. They were pretty dominant against Kansas. But the defensive line didn't play as big of a role in that dominance as it had the first 4 weeks of the season. Hopefully this rest gets them re-energized. See if we can get those guys back on track, start tearing stuff up again against Houston. Which injured players make it back on the field? Texas has had a lot of injuries this year. And none of them have been terrible injuries. Most of them haven't been long injuries. They've just been kind of lingering injuries. Obviously, one of the huge advantages of having a bye week is everybody getting some rest, trying to get some guys healthy. This bye week for Texas came right smack dab in the middle of the schedule, which I think, all things being equal, is very advantageous. A couple of guys that have been out for a while, Chris Ross, defensive lineman, and Cole Hudson, offensive lineman. They've been out since Wyoming. And, man, so Cole Hudson's a guy that started as a freshman last year at right guard, played all year with a hurt shoulder, had to have surgery on that shoulder during the offseason, missed most of spring practice, found himself in a battle with DJ Campbell at right guard during fall camp, ended up losing that battle, but he's played a lot. He's kind of the backup right guard and the backup center. He's been gone since Wyoming with a knee injury. Not sure exactly. I'm assuming some sort of knee sprain since there's been no surgery or anything like that. And then Chris Ross, yet another young guy, redshirt freshman, I believe, that has really flashed early in the season, man. Just like I saw a guy I've never knew before, number 97. I think it's 97. It's either 97 or 94. Anyway, saw this guy flash in one of the earlier games. I was like, who the hell is that? He was ripping around on a stunt, man, and just looked very, very sudden for a guy that big. He's kind of a tweener. He was a defensive tackle in high school, and so that's kind of what they recruited him as. But I think he only weighs about 250 pounds, so he's sitting at like 6'4", 250, which, you know, if you're athletic enough, that's a really nice size for an edge guy, and that's where he's been playing. He's either been playing like those wide tackle looks or off the edge. But, man, he came around on a stunt and just flashed, and I was like, who is that? I had to go look him up. Chris Ross. I'm like, dang. He gets hurt against Wyoming, looked like an elbow injury. Ryan Watts missed the Red River Shootout, starting cornerback. JT Sanders got injured against Kansas, didn't play most of that game, didn't play most of the Red River Shootout. Then you got Jake Majors, the starting center, got hurt in the Red River Shootout, which forced us to play a third-string center that's taken 14 snaps in his career at Texas. He's a redshirt freshman. He played most of the game in the Red River Shootout. According to Sark, they all practiced this week. So that's a good sign. But he did say some of them will be game time decisions, which leads me to believe that there's some they're just not confident about. By Thursday, you should be confident in who's physically ready for Saturday. Obviously, there's some of those guys they're not confident about. We'll see who it is. He made no indications of who that might be. Another injury we've been talking about all season, and this is one of those naggy deals. Hasn't kept him out, but you can tell he's not 100%. CJ Baxter, freshman running back out of Florida. The dude's been limping since the Bama game. And every time they put him in the game, man, I think they held him out. They held him out of the Wyoming game. And then the second he went in in the Baylor game, he ran the ball one time, didn't look great, didn't look smooth. Got up hobbling. And so he runs out on the field for his first carry looking okay every single time, every single first carry. He's hobbling. So get this kid 100%. I understand why you want to play him. He's a talented guy. Depending on which group you're looking at, he was the best running back in the country last year coming out of high school. So I get why you want to play him. But if you ain't 100%, let's sit him. Let's let Jaden Blue get some carries. People forget Jaden Blue was a 5-star out of high school. Well, he was rated as a 5-star as a junior, and he didn't play his senior year for some reason. I think maybe COVID. I think he opted out of his senior year because of COVID. And that dropped him down to a 4-star. Probably rightfully so, but he's got talent. To me, there's no reason. I mean, even if there's something going on with Jaden Blue, you got Keelan Robinson back there, got Savion Red, who's been showing up in a big way in the whatever they call that package where he lines up at quarterback. There's other guys. There's talented guys that you could give those carries to and get CJ Baxter healthy. So the 4 questions to recap. Does Texas bounce back mentally, emotionally, and physically from that Red River Shootout loss? Will Jordan Whittington make it 2 big games in a row? That's question 2. Question 3, will the defensive line dominate the line of scrimmage this last half of the season like they did through the first 4 games of the season, starting with these Houston Cougars on Saturday? And which of the injured players that have been naggy, beat up, nicked up, a couple of them long-term injuries, which of those guys does Texas get back after the bye week? 4 keys and a prediction, Houston Cougars edition. Number 1, Texas got to put in 4 quarters of football. Texas's roster is better. Texas's coaches are better. Texas's uniforms are better. Texas's mascot is better. Texas's band is better. Texas's fans are better. The team just needs to show up, be present, and be focused for 4 full quarters. If you look at this season, they've really only done that one time. And that was that Alabama game. We talked earlier this week about Texas, the perception that they play down to their competition. And the flip side of that is they play up to their competition as well. Coming into this season, knocking off Bama was a big deal for the University of Texas Longhorns. One of them games that's circled on the calendar, right? They knew they were going on the road. They knew it was going to be a crazy, wild, hostile environment, and they showed up and they played 4 full quarters. because they had to. I want to see this team play 4 quarters when they don't have to. I want to see this team dispel this perception that they played down to their opponents. Number 2 key for this game against the Houston Cougars, feature Jonathan Brooks. I don't care if it's running the ball. I don't care if it's catching the ball out of the backfield. But they have got to get this man touches early. Let the offensive philosophy be everything runs through Jonathan Brooks. And then everything else just takes care of it. So you get everybody focused on Jonathan Brooks, Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, JT Sanders, Jordan Whittington is going to have a field day down the field. Quinn Ewers is going to have a ton of time to stand back there and throw the ball and find people. If you guys will just start and feature Jonathan Brooks. He's the catalyst for this offense, folks. When he's in the game, the offense works. When he's not in the game, the offense doesn't work. Been seeing it for 6 games. It's not a coincidence. Key number 3, they got to get to Donovan Smith before Donovan Smith gets to them. The front 7 needs to be all up in Donovan Smith's face from the very first snap of this game. From the first snap to the last snap and everything in between, the Texas defense, the front 7, needs to pester the shit out of Donovan Smith. Donovan Smith needs to be having nightmares about icy white uniforms and those burnt orange Longhorns tattooing his ass all game long tomorrow afternoon. Donovan Smith is a plus runner. He's fast. He's also big. He's the type of dude that if you don't make him quit early on in the game, he might be able to make you quit later on in the fourth quarter. Ricky Williams was a guy. If you go back and watch Ricky Williams run in college, from about the third quarter on, most times, defenses didn't want to have shit to do with tackling Ricky Williams anymore. And I know Donovan Smith's not a running back, and I know he's not a Heisman Trophy guy. Just saying, he's a big dude. He's the type of guy that could frustrate a defense in the third and fourth quarter of games. He can get really hot throwing the ball. Don't want to give him a lot of time to stand back there and find his guys. He's pretty accurate when he does have time. Texas has to do everything they can to make this dude uncomfortable. They didn't do it at all last year in Lubbock when he was a member of the Texas Tech Red Raiders. I think his average was like 3 yards a pass in that game or 3 yards of completion in that game. But he had like 7 million yards passing in that game. Because Texas didn't do nothing to make him uncomfortable. Fourth key of the game, Texas got to protect Quinn Ewers. He has been under way too much pressure this season, especially lately. He's been sacked 14 times this season. Half of those came in the last 2 games, including 5 of them in the Red River Shootout. So sacked 14 times. Half of those have come in the last 2 games. And 5 of those came against Oklahoma in the Red River Shootout. So here lately, Quinn Ewers has been under fire. It's kind of crazy. He's had his best games the last couple games, though, statistically. had a hell of a game. You know, after those first 2 drives against Oklahoma, just a really, really good football game by Quinn Ewers. But when Texas has kept him clean, he's found guys, and he can deliver the football. We all know that. He's ultra talented. Put in 4 quarters of football. Feature Jonathan Brooks offensively. Get to Donovan Smith before Donovan Smith gets to you. Protect Quinn Ewers. That's the 4 keys to the game for the Texas Longhorns this Saturday against the Houston Cougars. Prediction time. I think Texas got pretty healthy over the bye week. I think Texas is probably mentally back in sync after this bye week. I think Texas is focused on these final 6 games. Texas is going to be too much on both sides of the line of scrimmage for Houston. And I think Texas is going to win this game 42-17. Random college football thoughts. These NCAA coaches have started to lose their damn minds. And maybe they've always lost their damn minds. But with the advent of social media, it's just gotten worse and worse. Shane Beamer, after the loss to Florida, kicks a Gatorade bucket and breaks his foot. In the press conference after the game against Florida, he does everything except like call players out by name. Just really kind of like a defiant sort of press conference. Like, I know he's frustrated probably. But you can't like, that part of being a leader and part of being the head guy is you got to take the blame, man. And then you got to do the things behind the scenes to hold people accountable on your team, right? Taking the blame doesn't mean they don't have to take some part of the blame. They just have to do it in a different way. You take it publicly. Behind the scenes, you hold them accountable to what they're failing to do. That's what being a leader is. You got Dabo Swinney talking about they should probably lose some games to make room on the bandwagon. There's too many people on the Clemson bandwagon. And you're either with us or you're with or against us. And if you're against us, just get the hell off the bandwagon. If you don't have nothing positive to say about Clemson football, if you're upset about the trajectory of the program and the trajectory of this season, just get off the bandwagon. You got Joey McGuire earlier this year simultaneously begging Tech fans to not give up on the team, and then turning around and telling them that they need to shut up if they're going to be negative about the team. Again, kind of this defiant, you're either with us or you're against us type thing. No room for, hey man, I love my Red Raiders, but you guys got to fix these things, and that was an embarrassing loss, or this thing was not good, or we should be better at this. There's no room for anything like that. You either love those Red Raiders or you get the hell off the bandwagon, says Joey McGuire. Shit like this is exactly why coaches should not be worried about what fans are tweeting or what fans are saying on message boards. Mac Brown used to do this. I think Mac Brown might have been the original dude that you could tell what was going on the internet got to him. Because he would mention things in his press conferences and respond to things in his press conferences. The internet is a cesspool, especially amongst sports fans. It is a 100% toxic environment. I'm part of it, and I love part of it. I love most of it, but even some of it is too toxic for me. All these people running their mouths on Twitter, all these people running their mouths on team message boards, almost none of them are people that have any decision-making ability about any coach's job. So why are you reading that shit? And why do you care about that shit? Coaches are wilding out. It's starting to get ridiculous. Put the damn phones down, coaches. Stop worrying about what Twitter says. Stop worrying about what all your team message boards say. Just coach football. Check us out Monday for Exaggeration Monday. We'll get all of Saturday's game off of our chest, good or bad. We'll have our Week 8 Trace Otra games recap. That'll be good. Actually, we'll do that on Tuesday. Exaggeration Monday is just all about the Saturday game. Check out the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Follow and subscribe, please. I would appreciate it. Won't cost you guys a thing. Email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys have a good Friday. Let's go Longhorns tomorrow afternoon against them Houston Cougars. Get hooked, baby.